Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and we are live at myworldpod.com, and we're throwing the keys to you guys. Hit Double J with your best shot. That's what we're doing today on Ask Jeff Anything. And, of course, we couldn't do it right here on My World without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Connie, I am just tickled to death on this Monday morning. Feel good. Sun's out, springs. I'm sitting out here looking at my window, and there is a nice dogwood tree blooming. And so lots of sights in the springtime area in this area. And I can't help, as we came on the air, you had that live tone as opposed to just kind of couldn't do it without the Hall of Fame. But I couldn't help but notice your background. So, Conrad, how's beach life? How's the beach life?
It's raining today, but it's going to be full sun and 80 tomorrow. So I'm getting my work out of the way today, and I'm so thankful that I get to call this work. You guys, if you've got a question for Double J, keep them coming. We are indeed live here on YouTube, and you don't want to miss us the next time we're live. So if you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button right now at myworldpod.com. While you're there, don't forget to hit the notifications bell. Now, that sounds silly, but the reason you're doing that is it will give you a push notification on your phone. So if you're on a smoke break at work, or you're on your lunch break, or maybe you're just having a leisurely day at home, you'll get that push notification immediately to know we're live, and you can start chatting with us. Seriously, nothing's off limits. Hey, something that has been off limits that we weren't allowed to talk about, but I'm just going to pull the curtain back now. I think there was a big announcement in Quincy this past Friday. Jeff, what's going on?
Oh, it's fun. It's yeah. I know that this is a priority. Mainly a professional wrestling storytelling time, and we get to cover all things wrestling, good, bad, and ugly. But as a part of my world, pardon the pun, I am into an ambassador, part of the ownership group, promotional team, marketing, and all that. Springfield Lucky Horseshoes, as everyone who follows this pod. We launched about 3 years ago. We're heading into our third season, and we acquired the ability, another team, and now we're in the rebranding. It's been called the Quincy Gyms, but now we revealed on Friday, and Conrad, I don't even think I've had this conversation with you, and we'll have it off air because it'll be way too lengthy, but there's a market research team and a branding organization, and they presented us with all kinds of market research and the different logos. And look, Jamie Toole, my partner, he steers the ship, and there was loads and loads of feedback because they get into the community. But we came out with, and at first time you hear it, it's like, what the hell are they talking about? But we are rebranded the Quincy Doggy Paddlers. And yes, that's not the Quincy Dog Paddlers, the Doggy Paddlers. And anyhow, Quincy, Illinois is right there on the river. It's a beautiful community, and dogwoods, the tree dogwoods are a big part of the community, and they have festivals and all the kind of stuff. And anyhow, that's the branding, the merch. That's the thing that I love and you too, Conrad, hey, what's the numbers and all that? And so the merch has already started to take off, and you can go to all of our social media, and I'm sure Dave will have that up for too long. But yeah, our social media and look, the merch, but we're looking forward to opening day. But yes, Golden Rule Entertainment is the parent company. And so we have launched our second team, the Quincy Doggy Paddlers.
What a fun name. I can't wait to check it out. I love the idea that it's right there on the river too. That's right up mine and your alley. So stay tuned. If I was a betting man, and I guess I have been known to have a little fun, especially with sports,
and Cody,
I would bet that there might be a little bit of wrestling entertainment at some point in Quincy. Would that be fair to say?
And they call that NTR, non-traditional revenue. NTR events. And so, in Springfield, we've had, beer festivals and dinner on the diamond and kids camps and softball clinics and baseball clinics and all kinds of stuff. And so professional wrestling, we had, that was so much fun last year. Big Ben Bishop and a bunch of others came and joined us. But we had set the ring up on home plate. So I'm looking forward to doing that in Quincy. There is truly nothing like it. minor league baseball people have asked me from time to time about why involved, and they are promoters at heart. And I think I'm a promoter at heart, and so it goes hand in hand.
Well, I am pumped. I know that you're having a lot of fun with baseball, but I also know that your one true love is professional wrestling. And your love language involved Spanish this past weekend. You went south of the border, and it was Rey de Reyes, which I think means King of Kings. And it looked like quite a show. Do I have this right? They brought back La Parka? What's going on with that?
Oh, no, come on. You got to get dialed into the culture. You know what? Man, so me and you could, oh God, man, I don't even know where to start, but it was funny. Flashback Friday on social media pods, and a Buzz, we had a conversation with our fella, and it was kind of crazy that 21 years ago this weekend is when I first kind of debuted on the Mexican scene. Antonio Pena, we were working together at AAA, and I brought him up, and he had a vision, I'll say, a promoter's vision for the character. He leaned really heavy into the King of the Mountain and just kind of went with it. But I made my appearance debut at Rey de Reyes. I won that, and they have this huge sword, Conrad, that they award the winner, and it was obviously controversial. And Latin Lover was my opponent, and people were not really happy. That was back when Latin Lover was full-time. He went on to be a mainstream celebrity in so many ways, and he's back with the promotion. But yeah, Rey de Reyes, it's one of their big five of the year. Obviously, Triplemania is the biggest one, comes up every August. But Rey de Reyes is we'll call it their March event. It, in a lot of ways, kicks off the season. But yeah, that was this past Saturday in Mexico City, and it's and I always get the wording of it wrong, but that venue, the gymnasium, and it's legendary. I'm trying to think how you would say it, but it is one of the go-to venues. And look, Mexico City has obviously Arena Mexico and others, but this is a very famous arena. It was sold out, as who would say, packed, hanging from the rafters. But I think around 6,000 is a sellout there. But it was full of energy. La Parka. So, Conrad, the history of this. You know the La Parka from WCW, right, Connie? Okay, I'm sure you know that well.
Yep, and I know there's LA Park, and I know that I guess AAA actually owns the IP.
Yeah,
but there was like a big presentation this weekend, right?
So the original La Parka, who went to people that know in WCW, he went on and had a falling out. He became LA Park, and then they created a new La Parka. God rest his soul, a wonderful, kind human being. I probably shouldn't say that as the rudo I am, but he passed away. And so now they have done a presentation, and Vampiro was there, and they kind of did an unveiling of the new La Parka. And he came out of the casket, and the people, man, Conrad, I don't know if you've seen it, but go out of your way. There'll be a clip of it. There is already a clip of it online. Conrad, it's one of those things that if you're dialed into the culture and the culture of Lucha Libre, it was a really special moment. I mean, very special. It was just cool. And me knowing the other two fellas that worked under that, and to see the evolution of the character, and this guy, young guy, obviously he's taller, a little bit more lanky, but man, he is a high flying, dove off a vomitor, but dove off out of the top of the arena onto the floor in a match early, and the people immediately were chanting his name. It was really cool. So it was a special weekend. Had an unfortunate situation, Conrad. We had a 3-way tag, and our friend, Brother Sam Adonis, and he's the one who put this out. So I'm not bashing him. I almost wish he wouldn't have, but
it was a bad day at the office. I mean, he wound up with like 13 stitches and a dislocated jaw, and
he said I
think a broken nose.
Yeah, I think he's a first. Well, I don't know, but he's Botchamania. He's Botchamania material.
First ballot Hall of Famer in the Botchamania Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but hey, man, I've been in a match. 2 out of the 6 got hurt. There was one of the guys who actually won the tag titles. I always say this right, must be Dynamitas. and I still hadn't got complete word, but he messed up his ankle pretty damn bad. So they were rocking and rolling. And again, the culture of Lucha Libre and AAA, and look, AAA, their brand of wrestling is different than CMLL, and just like WWE is different from AEW and TNA and New Japan and All Japan, and knowing all the different promotions. Conrad, in the main event, it was Hijo Vikingo, however you say that, against Alberto Patron, formerly known as Del Rio. Conrad, I bet there was north of 10 run-ins, and the people, I'm sure the I don't know, we'll call them however you want to say it, the hardcore fan, maybe it wasn't for them, but the people in the arena stood for the last, well, they were almost whole match, but they certainly stood for the last 15 minutes of the match. Vikingo's father was involved. I mean, they tore the house down. Another partner of yours, Brother JBL, Clothesline from Hell, came in, and what a reaction that was. But man, it was a big show feel all night long. It clicked. Hamburger, I still call him Hamburger Man. He won Ray to Rays, and man, Mr. Silva, if you don't have a shot of him, if you don't mind getting one.
Man, he is so over like Rover.
Unbelievable.
I saw it a few years ago in person, and it's as silly as it sounds, given all the incredible high-flying stuff that you can see at a lucha show. My biggest takeaway were, man, Mr. Iguana and El Nino Hamburgueso, or whatever you say, however I say it. I'm a hillbilly from Alabama, but they damn made an impression on me, and I'm like, these guys, they can be major television stars even in America. It will translate, won't it, Jeff?
Well, see, that's that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the pod today, in that there is almost, and I don't know if you saw my article that came out, not my article, but my man Jay interviewed me we talked about tribalism. And I think he was looking for an answer from me to kind of go one way. And I said, hey, man, I embrace it. It is a passionate wrestling fan. Now, look, they say some things that may be off color and blah, 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 blah. But they're saying
they're engaged.
They're engaged and they want it. And look, AAA or CMLL, or like I said, New Japan or WWE, it's not for everybody. I get that. But man, when you have my Hamburger Man winning Ray to Rays, nobody would have called that. But when that 1, 2, 3 happened, I mean, we were 3.5, maybe 4 hours into the show. I mean, the people exploded. And what was really cool backstage, Conrad, because I was in a little room, we'd already finished. We were at the very top of the pay-per-view, the television component of it. So I was still in my tights. But the guys backstage, Conrad, there were 2 or 3 dressing rooms. It was an explosion. I mean, a real heartfelt, like, our man won it, because he's been on the grind for a while. Yeah, but Hamburger got the 1, 2, 3, and now he is ready to raise. It's cool. It's very cool.
I love it. As a reminder, we're throwing you guys the key to the show, and we have got a great question here from Trigger Cheese, who wants to know, Jeff, what were your prime years in your opinion? He says 05, 06. So when you're thinking about when you were at your peak, mentally, physically, performatively, listen, I know you continue to learn. I know that you're a student of the game by every definition. So you probably have a better understanding and grasp right now. But when you look back in your rearview mirror and you think, hey, when was I at my peak? When was I absolutely at my best? If I think about a guy like Shawn Michaels, I think like 96 to 98, even though he was only there for like 3 months in 98. But that's sort of the time period I think about for Shawn. And I know a lot of people really loved his second act, and who could argue the magic he created with The Undertaker. But when you take into account your own career, Trigger Cheese thinks 05, 06. What do you think?
Trigger Cheese, I'm not going to rain on you, but I wish you would have maybe, look, here I go, Conrad, and I do appreciate it, Trigger Cheese, and shout out. But I would want to go, if I was talking to Trigger in person, I would say, do you mean physically, mentally, psychologically? And I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but, and look, I think a lot of folks may be looking for 1 or 2 years. I think he said 05, 06. Conrad, in, I'll call it 95, till about, I don't know, 2005, 2006, 2007. I feel like when I went to the ring, I could wrestle all night. My physical conditioning, wrestling even on those hard ass WWF rings. I mean, when me and Scott Hall were told go out, and I know we've talked about A match, B match, C match. It's just like if we had to go, we had to go, and we wanted to go. I think that was it. So the physical part of it, I think the mental part of it kind of continues to grow. And I think, you hear, I'm as of late, I've been reading and watching a couple of things on Tom Brady, just kind of how he mentally prepared and how good he was in his 40s versus his 30s. And man, you talk about a blow away stats when you really drill down into that. I just think his physical skill, he stayed in great shape, but I think his mental skills just went through the roof. So prime years, I'm going to give it a little bit more in depth. I'd say from 95 to 05. You're on mute, pal. You're on mute.
I just saw something that got my attention.
Oh boy.
And I can't wait to share it with you on the other side. We'll be right back.
Listen, as guys, sometimes we all have to think worst case scenario. That's kind of our role as protectors. But then there's this delicate balancing act. If you're a dad and you're the man of the house, well, you probably need to think about how to protect the house. But how do you also protect the kiddos? Stopbox Pro is the way to go. I'm a big believer in this. I have had handguns in my home before, and I was nervous about the idea that, hey, I need to keep them out of reach of little kids, but at the same time, I need to be ready. I don't need to be fumbling around looking for it. I also didn't need to stress out about fumbling around with keys or maybe a battery that died. Well, Stopbox Pro helped me with all of that. You see, what I like best about Stopbox Pro is that it's all mechanical, so you never have to worry about batteries or keys or any of that. Not only that, I also like that all the Stopbox products are proudly made in the USA in their own facility. Not only does this ensure the highest quality craftsmanship of every product sent out, it also creates meaningful jobs and opportunities for American workers. I also like that my Stopbox Pro is TSA compliant, meaning I can just throw it in my checked bag and I'm good to go. Stopbox doesn't just stop there. They've also got other innovative products like vehicle safe, chamber lock, and all kinds of cool goodies. And for a limited time, our listeners are getting a crazy deal. Not only do you get 10% off your entire order when you use our code MyWorld at StopboxUSA.com, but they're also giving you an unbelievable buy one, get one free for their Stopbox Pro. That's what I got. And you can get one for 10% off and a free Stopbox when you use our code MyWorld at StopboxUSA.com. That's StopboxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox. Don't forget, use that promo code MyWorld at StopboxUSA.com.
So, Jeff, the entire wrestling world is talking about a milestone that is about to be passed. And we wrestling fans have had this one circled for a while, as I understand it. And maybe I have the exact numbers off here. But I think Nitro made it through 286 episodes before it came to an end. And that same number of episodes is going to land on March 26th, which is this Wednesday. And when I saw that last year, I sort of freestyled, man, how fun would it be if they did a spring break Dynamite and they did it from the beach with a floating ring? And of course, whenever I said that on Twitter, people were like, well, Club La Vila's closed. Well, the last Nitro wasn't at Club La Vila, and floating rings didn't start at Club La Vila. It existed before. But I still like that idea. And then, of course, when I suggested it, I was told, wow, that was less than ideal. And I get it. But I kind of just thought it was only fans who were keeping up with the number of episodes of Nitro compared to the number of episodes of Dynamite. But then on Sunday night, we saw Tony Khan actually make a tweet about that.
Ooh.
Well, as we're recording, a report has come out this morning, and I guess this is from NoDQ.com, that says AEW is producing a special edition of Dynamite to celebrate the show surpassing WCW Nitro in total episodes. And I heard a podcast or a clip of Dave Meltzer talking about this, and he said, I don't get why they're discussing this. It feels like the only person this matters to maybe is Eric Bischoff, but I'm interested in the idea that it has surpassed it. It's a fun celebratory thing, but I thought it would be like a spring break thing. But a big portion of the internet feels like Tony Khan might be kind of trolling Eric Bischoff here. What do you make of that?
I don't know about the trolling part of it. I hadn't seen the tweet, so Dave, if you've got that, throw it up there. But Conrad, the chair that I'm sitting in was the chair that, and I don't know how many people you freestyled it with, but I don't know if you remember my reaction. And I think we both went down, I don't call it rabbit holes, but man, oh man, different ideas and concepts and celebrations. And I think you could throw in nostalgia and throwback. Our man, Mr. Shabani, was on whatever it is, 268, 286, whatever number it is. I mean, look, this business is built on, well, I'll say this: successful wrestling businesses are built on promotion. How can we promote something and that's already good, and how can you make it great? I always like to use that throwback. It's kind of one of my personal mantras: go from good to great. But Conrad, when we freestyled, I think we came up with, I don't know, we could have talked several hours that day, but I love it. I think, you know, the old adage, records are made to be broken. In my kind of timeline, Conrad, socially, there's been quite the, hey man, there's a lot of episodes of Impact. And then I kind of start thinking about, yep, that's great. But, you know, kind of how everything exploded from a national perspective, that, you know, in a lot of ways, superstars and challenge of the WWF. And Conrad, help me out. What were the syndicated shows? Because 605 on Saturday night, but there was Worldwide and a couple
Power Hour, Main Event.
Yeah. But Nitro, you know, was launched after Raw. And when you think of the evolutions of Raw, just how many episode after episode after episode. And, you know, my old man ran from his own show, and look, he took it over from Nick, but whatever that was, 77, and how many episodes of Memphis Wrestling were produced. So nothing is truly original. But man, I think whether it's troll or not a troll, let's promote, let's make it as big as possible. Let's fill the show up of memories and moments that whether it's a callback or a throwback or something to create engagement. I don't want to just say controversy. So if it's perceived as a troll, great. That's controversy. If it's not, if it's perceived as a celebration, maybe even better. I love it. But man, I would have loved to be getting in a plane tomorrow and head to the beach for multiple reasons. But I think that'd been really cool to do something as kind of a ode, connecting the dots, if you will, like we had discussed.
An homage to Spring Break Nitro would have been fun. I need some cannonballs. Maybe we'll try again next year. Shout out to Efren, who was with us here live and said, I nailed the Spanish.
Efren. Shout out, pal.
Yeah. Instagram of Wrestling Historian wants to know, whose idea was your world map entrance in TNA? Thanks.
Oh, let me ask you, Conrad, before I answer. You know what he's talking about? That
Yep.
Video wall. Okay, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you were. I think back then I was not your favorite.
The human fast forward button. Yes.
Oh, Conrad, I saw somebody connecting yesterday, as I knew, came back from Mexico in the Atlanta airport, and you know, as you go down the escalator, you're waiting on the transit of this, and the guy had gotten off a train, and I'm getting on one, but we're waiting there, and he gets off, and he walks back to me. He turns around, he said, Jeff. I said, hey, how you doing? He came up, shook your hand. He said, I just want to shake your hand. Conrad's right. You were an absolute prick. I hated your ass, but man, oh man. Conrad turned me on that. I said, I'll be sure and let him know tomorrow. Anyway, shout out to the Atlanta listener. That video wall, though, at the time, you know, I was the NWA champion and I defended it in the UK tours. I defended it in Australia. I think Andrew McManus, I think that was the New Zealand pay-per-view. So we kind of wanted to represent that, but I got to tip my cat. That was a JB, Jeremy Borash, Jeff Jarrett collaboration. Maybe he was the original one that maybe said we'll do a map, but it was based off of that was something that we wanted to bring to light in the early days of TNA, that the NWA champion, again, had a lineage from 1905 that traveled from, it wasn't just a one company champion, that I had defended the title. And I did that and for several different promotions during the startup days of TNA. Shout out Instagram, a wrestling historian.
Yeah, shout out to him for sharing us the news right now, because you and I are live on YouTube. We're not scrolling our phone, but my man is double tasking. He's multitasking.
All right.
And he says the natural disasters are official. They've been announced as being the newest members into the WWE Hall of Fame. Listen, Tugboat was a big part of my childhood. I was a little Hulkamaniac, and when Earthquake squished him, I just couldn't believe it. Who would have thought years later they would have been a tag team? But when you think about iconic opponents for Hulk Hogan and sort of the golden era, Earthquake checks that box, and Tugboat was sort of one of Hogan's best friends. They were doing the Hogan friendship bracelets at the time. I think this is long overdue. I'm so happy for John Tenta and Fred Ottman. Congrats on going into the WWE Hall of Fame.
My first memories of Big Fred, Conrad, right down here at the road from me, Madison, Tennessee. There was a Gold's Gym that opened, and Big Bubba, as Fred was known in those days, and Goliath, Pittsburgh boy, we teamed them up, and they had an apartment in that area. But there are legendary stories about Big Fred going in Gold's, how strong he was. And those stories at times, there's a couple of Steiner stories in gyms I work at, guys that I've known through the years, but Fred's stories are legendary, how strong he was back in the day. But and then my man John, I made, I don't say half a dozen, maybe more than that, but road trips in the WWF at the time, and I jumped in cars with him, and I really got to know his history, because, man, I was, me, Conrad, I was, hey, man, tell me a little bit about this, and I learned about his Japan days. And John was a gentle giant, but you could really tell folks that got, that's one man you don't want to piss off because his athletic ability, kind of what his training was. He was a very, very fascinating guy, intellectual, but a sweetheart of a guy. But yeah, it's pretty cool. If you would have asked me before this, we'll call it Hall of Fame season, if those guys were in the Hall of Fame, I would have said, oh yeah. I didn't even really recognize they weren't. So I do think it's long overdue. They both had different impacts. So I'm happy for both of their families.
Shout out to them, man. I just think the world of them, and I had the pleasure of working with Fred at a StarCast. We had a special little backdrop made, so it looked like he was bursting through the wall, Shockmaster style. It was a one-of-a-kind photo op that we did. I'm glad we got to do it, and I'm glad he's where he belongs now, in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Hey, let me just stop you on that. When and I have to online, if the Shockmaster clip is played, and look, it's unfortunate, but everybody can laugh and chuckle about that. Is it not the funniest soundbite when Sid says, I knew it.
When Davey says he fell on his ass or whatever, man, it gets me.
Oh my gosh.
I want to remind everybody, we are live. You're watching this live right now at myworldpod.com. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, but keep those questions coming. Let's do one here from Brock B, USA 21. And this is very specific, Jeff. He wants to know, Jeff, do you remember the snake in a box match in Jackson, Tennessee? It would have been like 1987 or 1988. Do you remember this? Working a snake in a box match.
So I did it around the horn with Jonathan Boyd, a sheep herder. And Conrad, in 87, I'm 20 years old and had, a year or so in the business. But snakes were never my favorite thing. They just weren't. And this snake was Jonathan's. I still find it hard to believe snakes are pets. But anyway, it was his pet. And he came up with the concept, and I could just remember my old man lighten up as he kind of pitches it and this and that. And my dad's like, all right, son. I was really never asked, will you do it? It is, you are going to do it. And, Jonathan was all gung-ho, but to make the match work, I had to kind of be teased to be thrown in the box. And once we got to Jackson, I'll say that I don't say we had our rhythm down, because we did the match in Memphis, Nashville, Louisville, Evansville, and at spot shows. And when you just see that advertised, and again, going back and the life lessons I learned how to promote, you promote a battle royal in a weekly town, it does okay. You promote a battle royal in a spot show or something, the little people or females back in the day, something to make it special. When you announce a snake box and it'd been on TV, Eddie Marlin, during that run, he said, I do this on every spot show I possibly could. I said, well, that's good for you. Find something. No, but it was, I do remember it. And Jonathan worked the hell out of that match. He worked super hard. It was his match. So he wanted it to get over every time. And when I would finally do whatever I needed to do and beat him up, and I think a couple of the high spots to go home where I drop kicked him, he'd take a bump over the box and not go in, take another drop kick, go over, and then I would open it up and I'd hit him with the drop kick. He'd fall in, and then you shut the box and the people pop. Anyway, he and then he'd come out of it with his arm bleeding, as of course, all snakes bite when you put him in a box. But when he came out of that box bleeding, it was a pop.
I have to admit, until a few minutes ago, I'd never heard of a snake in a box match.
No way.
I think I've heard of everything. Were you a Saturday Night Live fan?
Oh yeah.
You
on Delta now, when you watch TV, they have episodes from 75 now. So Saturday Night Live getting into reruns. But yes, I'm obviously ins and out of the different years. The Farley years, I think, were unbelievable. But go ahead.
Do you remember seeing a skit with Justin Timberlake about a box?
Oh boy.
Well, he told us all about the ultimate Christmas present to get any lady in your life. He called it the dick in the box. And if you want to give a gift worth giving, well, let's take a listen.
Listen, boys, what's old is new again, thanks to our friends at Bluechew. And no, I'm not just talking about your ween. I'm saying they've made some adjustments over at Bluechew, and check this out. Now they've got Bluechew Max. Yeah, Bluechew Max is here. It's the final boss, if you will. It combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis, but into one chewable. This is a tag team that acts fast and it lasts. You can go the distance. Let's go Broadway today, boys and girls. And guys, you can be ready whenever she needs it. So get your first month of Bluechew free. That's right. Grace X is just a few clicks away. So go sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And dude, once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Bluechew's tablets are made in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Bluechew free when you use our promo code MyWorld. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code MyWorld. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Bluechew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Jeff, we've got some sad news. I just want to get this out of the way. I wanted to be a fun and lighthearted show, but we are going to have to be real for a minute. I don't know that you saw, but there's a report out this morning that we have lost someone who used to be a pretty important figure in your life and our little wrestling community at large. Janice Carter has unfortunately passed away. And, of course, longtime listeners of this show know that, Abyss's barbed wire bat that he used to carry around was nicknamed Janice. And I think that was maybe a tip of the cap to Mrs. Carter. But Bob's lovely bride, Dixie's mom, has passed away. Vince Russo even took to Twitter this morning. He was actually the first person I saw report this news. Just read about the passing of Dixie Carter's mom, Janice Carter. What a strong, powerful woman, always honest and straightforward. Tough loss. God bless Dixie and her entire family. Jeff, you got to know the Carters pretty well. What can you tell us about Miss Janice?
Well, Vince is spot on. Tough lady. Smart as a whip. And, And we have talked off and on, and about 99% of the time, the business side of the Carter family. From the personal side, Conrad, I can't really put into words what a not just special lady, but how she epitomized the word mother, because she was the mom of the family. I mean, some folks know that, Bob Carter came from orphan, I think Rome, Georgia, clay dirt floors. He came from nothing, literally. And Bob and Janice, like, and I know it's a different era and a different time, but man, they came up the hard way. And so they didn't, they didn't live this life of, I don't want to say life of luxury. That sounds, but they didn't really come into making their big money. I think both of them were well into their 50s. And so Janice knew, she's the first one, I believe, how she coined the phrase owner eye. And look, I could talk I mean, and Conrad, I was aware of this morning, but I could talk for a long time about different stories. And, one of the ones that came to my mind as I was sitting there doing cardio this morning, I'll never forget that we had just kind of closed the deal. And, it was well after they had agreed, but we were the legal stuff and the closing docs and all the sign-offs and all that kind of stuff, because you had to transition all kinds of stuff, loads and loads of legal work and all that kind of stuff. But we had more or less got to the finish line on this. And, the mindset, and we laughed and cut up about this later. So, but Conrad, we had, they were going to do legal and finance and administration and, all that kind of stuff, and the back end and all that kind of stuff. And then we, again, been together, I don't know, maybe 3 months or something like that. And something came up about the TNA logo. And I was like, hey, I'm not, I'm not dialed into anything. What's the situation? And Dixie and her mom were in a disagreement on the different reds that were going into the TNA logo. And I thought, okay, this lady is dialed in to this investment. But man, yeah, the glue of the family, the backbone of the family. She wasn't afraid, in a very respectful way, to have the conversations that needed to be had, even with her husband. I always admired that about them. You used to, out in Dallas, you get off the elevator and you go into their offices, and you go down to the back hall. And obviously that's where Bob's office was. But then you go to the back hall, and not far from it, or around the corner, you had Janice's office. And so Janice had an office in Panda, and man, sweetheart of a lady, a business-minded lady. And like I said, I always respected the fact she was never afraid to have the conversations that needed to be had. In Nashville, we would have those big video screens, and she would be in Dallas at her desk, and we would be at the conference table 4, 5, 6 across. And, she, again, like I said, she would speak her mind and have in business, like Conrad, me and you have alluded to multiple times, having those uncomfortable conversations are not fun, but they are absolutely necessary. So God rest her soul. Thoughts and prayers to the entire Carter family, all of them. I owe a lot to those folks in Dallas, and I'm talking about not just the Carters, Panda as a whole. So that's a tough loss. It really is. And so thoughts and prayers with all of them.
All right, Jeff, there was a power little burst over at Conrad's location. So we're going to go to the next question and just keep this train rolling.
Oh, Dave. Now, Dave, are we going to a 2-shot of you? We have to go to a 2-shot of you.
We'll take a 2-shot. I'll fill in for Conrad on this one.
I love it. Folks, we're in trouble now.
We are going live, baby. Okay. We're going live.
We're good.
Let's take up Doug Myers' question right here.
Okay.
I have a great question that will motivate me as well. Please ask Jeff, what is his bicep and tricep routine at the gym? He still has huge arms. Huge arms. Show those guns, Jeff. Show those guns.
I'm not showing the guns. the specific question is, what's the routine? I'll say this, and Doug, thank you for your question. I just had this conversation as I walked in the gym. A buddy of mine had gotten done training, and he's like, hey, man, I just had a conversation with your trainer, Corey. And he's like, I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around how y'all do things. And I said, think of it real simple. Your heart's your biggest muscle. So if you don't get that pumping, you're not going to get blood to your muscles. It's just, it's an impossibility. So you got to get your heart rate up and don't overtrain arms. And I say that with, if you're doing a press, a push exercise, you're getting your chest and your tries. Depends on what exercise you're getting your shoulders. So think about a workout as in a push day. A pull day is back, buys, and traps, and then legs is a different deal, and you're going to get your core there as well. But high reps and get your heart rate up. So I suggest, real simple, again, Doug, I appreciate your question. I could talk forever, but think about supersetting. The big exercise first. If you're doing chest, do the stretch exercise first, then a push, heavy duty, Mike Mercer. But in between your supersets, do whatever it is, mountain climbers, up, down, planks, jump squats, whatever it is, but do 20 to 25 reps of something to get your heart rate way up. And that is, to me, the kind of the secret sauce, and your workouts shouldn't be over 30 minutes. All right, Silva, that's my training.
Body by Jeff. That was a body by Jeff. Little nugget. You remember old Jack LaLanne from back in the day? Oh my God.
Bless his heart. Yes.
Let's go to I Dunk Biscuits.
Oh, boy, is that in pounds? I see that, right? 5 pounds?
Yeah, I believe so. If you could take one gimmick match from history and revamp it to the current product, what would you choose and why? I Dunk Biscuit says Ultimate X in AEW springs to mind.
Well, that's when you say revamp it, I Dunk Biscuits, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the pounds. Revamp, I think it depends on what you're talking about. I think Elevation X is the scaffold match with the X, but the Ultimate X to me is something that I know it's a signature, and the TNA continues to do it. But I think there are a generation of athletes. When you think back, and I always say AJ Styles plus Ultimate X and the right opponents, and look, he had a lot of good ones, but it takes special athletes. I definitely would have to say an Ultimate X with a Will Ospreay, and I'll say in others that could get super creative with it. I think that's got to rank right up there at the top of it. I Dunk Biscuits. Can you imagine if we had a snake bite match today? Hell, guys would want to be getting bit by pythons and have the anti-venom at ringside, and have a clock on the put the clock up in the arena that you have to take the anti-venom in a minute, in less than a minute, or you're going to pass out. I don't know. I'd have to really think through any of the gimmick matches. The gauntlet for the gold that we originated in TNA, I think there's a lot of meat there that can, the end of that can be done a couple of different ways. It can get down to the last two. It can get down to the last four and have a fatal four-way. Man, there's a lot. Good question, Dunk. I appreciate you tuning in today.
And we'll just keep these questions rolling as Conrad's still working to get his internet back up.
At the beach.
At the beach. Jeff, I don't know if you probably heard the news, but Sean Moody wanted to bring it to our attention also that George Foreman, world heavyweight champion, passed away recently.
Yes.
Did you ever meet George Foreman?
I met him, and I think it was a WCW event. I met him one time. I want to say Philly. I may be completely wrong. But I don't know if people on this stream that they follow my Twitter /X account, but Super 70s Points, Ricky Cobb is a buddy of mine, and I retweeted his 2-minute I guess you could say, quick little obituary on him. But, you know, with the passing of George, when you really dug down and read about the two versions of George, pre and post being saved by Jesus Christ, it is really, really fascinating. And to see his triumphs and becoming world champion 20 years later, after his quote unquote prime. But, you know, they talk about him being the most powerful puncher in the game, and that takes in a lot of ground. What a fascinating life George led in many ways. But Mr. Moody, shout out. I appreciate you joining in. But yeah, I think I met old George at one event, and I think it was a WCW event. Sorry for the lack of recollection.
We are live here looking for your questions. So if you've got a question, keep them coming. We are doing it live. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, it would get all of that. Hey, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend, but I wanted to bring this to your attention because I sort of stumbled across it and I heard a name and did a double take and said, oh, I got to watch this. But I saw the NCAA Amateur Wrestling Championship happen, like the final match. And Gable Steveson, who we all know won a gold medal and then tried his hand at sports entertainment with WWE, didn't work out. So he returned to Minnesota and he was in the finals and he got somehow upset. Wyatt Hendrickson, I think I have his name right from memory, from Oklahoma State, you see there, somehow, some way secures a 3-point takedown in the final round. And Daniel Cormier on commentary was losing his mind and said it was perhaps the biggest upset in NCAA history. Gable was sort of shocked. His face, his reaction was unbelievable. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, was front row there. And then we see Hendrickson drape himself on the American flag. But they even came out with like pomp and circumstance. There's some smoke and some lasers, and they're coming out with theme songs. And it felt like, you know, pro wrestling or MMA, except it was collegiate wrestling. This was unbelievable. Did you see this? And do you think there's a chance we see Wyatt try his hand at professional wrestling, Jeff?
Well, I'll answer that one first. That is something that everybody, obviously, it's jumping off the page. I think he's in the Air Force. What a fascinating story, all the way around. And you know, the biggest upset in NCAA history, you know, they talk about the Dan Gable. Man, that takes in a lot of ground. But when you look at Gable's record, my gosh, but it just goes to show you the old saying, not a cowboy, not a horse that can't be rode, or a cowboy that can't be throwed. It wasn't his night. And I heard the interview this morning online that he literally said, I had a strategy. I had to, you know, I knew that I had to, you know, do something impactful, go for broke, high risk, not turning back. And when you kind of look at life, Conrad, it's when you make those kind of decisions, when the reality is he knew, if I'm going to win, I don't have a choice but to really swing for the fences. If I stay safe, I'm not going to win. I think there's a life lesson in there, Connie. If you really, really want to succeed, you have to perceive yourself in that valley and know where to go up and just swing for the fences. The worst that could have happened to him is that he could have gotten beat. Everybody expected that. So hats off, man. That's very cool. I don't think we'll see him in professional wrestling. I'm curious, really curious where Gable goes from here. Because, man, that on that kind of stage, that's, as an athlete, that is a tough loss to kind of go out that way. But Conrad, as we sit here doing, I don't know what episode this is. We're getting way up there, but we've said it a couple of times. Connie, don't everything end up turning back wrestling? I mean,
yes, everything's wrestling. And by the way, you said you don't know what's next for Gable. I do, and I'll tell you off air. We are live here, and we greatly appreciate you guys joining us. If you haven't already, keep that question coming. If you got a question for Double J, now is your question to ask it. And when I was thinking, when I saw those guys wrestling around, that's pretty close proximity. I really hope those fellows didn't have any stinky nuts. But if they do, I know what they could do.
All right, now we're going to talk about Jeff's son Cody's favorite product that we endorse. I'm talking, of course, about Mando. Cody considers himself Mr. Mando. And let me just tell you, if you don't want your balls to stink, look no further. Mando's whole body deodorant is the way to go. It's safe to use anywhere on your body, your pits, your balls, your thigh folds, your belly buttons, your butt crack, even your feet. You see, Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Hey, and a little fun fact, she actually went to the same school as Eric Bischoff. Maybe his stinky nuts were so legendary, she created a solution. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. Here's what I do know. Mando has been clinically proven to block odor all day and control it for up to 72 hours. Ask Cody's mom, Karen. Mando's deodorant options are awesome, too. You've got solid stick deodorant, which is formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts. You've also got a great spray deodorant, which is aluminum-free and ideal for those hard-to-reach places. All the products are baking soda-free and paraben-free, and they come in a bunch of great smelling scents like bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. What are you waiting for? Mando has been clinically proven to control odor better than just a shower with soap alone. And if you're ready to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, well, you're in luck because you can find them at Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. But for the best deals, go right now to shopmando.com. That's where you'll find Mando's starter pack, and it truly is perfect for new customers. You'll get the solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, and you get to pick 2 free products of your choice. I recommend the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes, plus you get free shipping. And as a special offer for our new listeners, how about new customers getting $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code? That's like 40% off your starter pack, and all you got to do is use our code MyWorld at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. You'll smell fresher, you'll stay drier, and you'll boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
Jeff, we've got a question from our live studio audience here joining us on YouTube. And again, if you're listening, this is live. Keep those questions coming. We want to hear from you. Rob Dog says, does it bother you when people you are close with, like Eric Bischoff and Jim Cornette, are so critical of AEW? And do you feel like you're in the middle of it? I've never even thought to ask you that because you do have a lot of great, longtime friends who are at times fairly critical of AEW, but you're actively employed there and, you're on the roster and, you want to defend your company and you know what's really going on. Do you feel like you're in the middle sometimes, or is that just not really the way you think about it?
I'm not in the middle of it. Look, and everybody has kind of a lens on life on I learned this in recovery too, in their totality of life experiences. And we obviously are in the age of instantaneous information, exchange of information. And so when I have seen, let me say this, a Lawler, a Dundee, a Dutch Mantel, a Jerry Jarrett have open discussions on philosophical stuff about professional wrestling. And there at times they were complete. I mean, my dad liked a small card, 4 to 5 to 6, not 4, 5 to 7 matches. Lawler like 9 to 10 to 11. That's doubling the card, doubling a lot of things. And so that was a philosophical difference. I think at the end of the day, whether, EB or JC, again, they don't work for the company. They run their own businesses. So they got to do what's best for their business. So you almost have to take that from their set point in that at the end of the day, and Conrad, I've known this before, but you're the one who really has, I'll say, nurtured me in a way that, hey man, everybody has an opinion. And I go back to Wade Keller, Jason Powell, Dave Meltzer, those folks that would report on different scenarios, if you will, and having the understanding. I'm like, dude, they're not even there. That's not their fault. And their job is to go make money. So they need to write or post or do whatever they feel is best for their audience. So obviously, Jim and Eric have an audience that they have cultivated, and they're saying and reporting or conversationally, they're doing what they believe is best for their business. But no, I'm not caught in the middle of it, because the old serenity prayer, you can't control what other people say or do or think. And again, going back to my statement on tribalism, which I was pleasantly surprised at how much traction and how much online in DMs. Hey, I never looked at tribalism that way. Hey, man, as long as you're engaging in the product, that is truly, really all that matters, period. I mean, the Cena turn, man, the opinions on that, the Jey Uso, we'll call it, kind of smoke surrounding that. The Moxley shot from last week. I mean, we could go on and on and on. As long as they're engaged and the business continues to grow. I mean, that main event Saturday night, I'll go back to that because it's fresh on my mind. I'm not kidding you, Conrad. I think at least 10 run-ins, and the people never, ever got off their feet. And I'm sure if people watch that from a pure wrestling point of view, that they are going to bash the hell out of it. But how can you argue with a sellout house?
I love your perspective. We are going to hit all of those things that Jeff just listed. But first, we've got a live question from Mr. who says, how do you forgive the people in your company, he's talking about TNA, and the quote-unquote journalists that villainize you and try to take your livelihood away from you, and now knowing the truth, that they don't apologize? Love the show. Thanks. Boy, what a deep question that is.
Conrad, help me out, or Mr., if you want to put it in the comments. Villainize you, tried to take your livelihood away from you.
You created the promotion to make yourself champ because you couldn't do it anywhere else. You kept all the talent down. You booked yourself in the main event. You held down talent. You didn't want them to succeed. It was the me show. Okay. That was the narrative that was out there. But that was sour grapes from people who were on the roster. And you were wearing two hats where you had power and you were wrestling. And when you go back and you look at Jeff Jarrett or Dusty Rhodes or whatever, everybody always says the same thing, which I think is why Cody and the Bucks sort of painted themselves in a corner when AEW first started. With the benefit of hindsight, I don't think that was the right call. But you lived through it, and now you've seen success on the other side. And even when some of those quote-unquote journalists now know the truth, there's not really an apology tour. They just shit on you, and you just deal with it. So talk us through that.
Well, I've learned this, and this comes from wisdom. The hardest person to face in life when you've done something wrong or lied or fabricated, as we're having discussed here, the hardest person to face is not me, but themselves. They have to look themselves in the mirror, and nobody, and I mean nobody, unless you kind of think, and I'm saying sober-minded, not from drugs and alcohol, I'm talking about clear thinking, you don't ever would admit you're wrong. And so those people that say that, that's the last thing they're going to do, say, hey, I made up this shit about Jeff. I was a liar, and I really didn't have facts. And just what you're saying, I'm not going to report the fact that, yeah, man, when he signed Kurt Angle, he was never in the title. He was never a champion again. And I forget the fact that as he was building all this and the quote unquote me Jeff deal, they went from a little success to a little bit of success. Oh, then they got an hour on Spike, and then they got 2 hours. Then they went prime time and this and profitable, blah, blah. They're never going to admit to themselves any of that, because facing our own faults is very hard. The man in the mirror is the toughest person that you'll ever face in your life.
Well, I got to tell you, I thought somebody was making stuff up about you a couple of years ago, but I think it's finally going to come true. I'm talking about our friends over at Zombie Sailor. Check out this new Double J action figure. We were teased this, and now I think it's actually going to come to fruition. I've seen a very colorful, look at that. I love all the colors, man. That thing will pop off a shelf. This is like neon overdose. Is this real? How far out is this? Do you know the latest with Zombie Sailor? What can you tell us about this figure? Because this looks like one of the coolest Double J figures yet.
So, Conrad, this has been being worked on way before AEW. I went to AEW, so 2.5, 3, maybe 3.5. Because I want to say maybe it goes back to even before I went back to the WWE the last time. So whenever, a while ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. And Zombie Sailor, that they do things, and there's a lot of boutique action figure distributors, if you will. And there's been a few out on me, but when he kind of approached me and Josh, he's just like, all right, this guy's going to do it right. He's really going to think through it. And when he picked that outfit out, because I can remember that fabric and taking it to my little old lady and Miss Collins, and oh, this is colorful. This is kind of a different look, Jeff. I'm like, yeah. But anyway, that I just think those tights that you can authenticate. Yeah, it just kind of rings true. So if I'm not understanding, they go on sale Friday.
What? Oh, wow. So that's finally happening.
We're here. We're here. The buzz is out. There is social media. Gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, Dave. If you can help me, I think it's at Zombie Sailor Toys or at zombiesailor.com is the website. But he's got, I know he's got a hell of an Instagram and shows different images. But Conrad, yeah, that outfit with that hat, and you know, we're all excited about it. I had a conversation with him this weekend, and I said, well, we're about here because he has worked on this, and there were multiple. I'll call it revisions and discussions and conversations, and he did it right. I'll just say that he did it right. So I want to say, yeah, it's this Friday, zombiesailor.com.
Can't wait. We, of course, will be pushing out all the information on our social media, so be sure to follow us there. He is at Real Jeff Jarrett, and of course, it's at My World Pod over on Twitter. Hey, let's talk. Yes, sir.
I like to address in the comments, Mr. His question was, how do you forgive the people in your company and journalists? But how do I forgive? Look, if I don't forgive folks, that poison, it poisons me, not anybody else. So an easy forgive them, for they not know what they do. They didn't. They just bashed the bash.
Well, neither did all those haters who were saying that the SEC was overhyped and they weren't legit. But I think they're about half of the Sweet 16.
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
Alabama's picking up some wins. Tennessee's picking up some wins. Tennessee has Kentucky next. I think the Alabama game is going to be late Thursday night. I'm fired up to see that. What do you expect? Who do you think is going to be there at the very end of this, Jeff? Do you have a prediction?
Well, Conrad, I almost sent you a little graphic, not to digress, but Tennessee and Alabama had a little baseball series this weekend. And I think it's been a long time since the University of Tennessee's beat Alabama in basketball, baseball, and football. But I won't talk about the clean sweep. But, man, I think Tennessee's got a shot in my pool. I had a bracket buster for me. I really thought St. John's could make a run, and I actually thought Connecticut could make a run. But, boy, I was wrong on both of those. It's easy for me now to say SEC team, but, man, Florida is – when you kind of look – when you break their team down, Conrad, I'll just say this. Tennessee, Alabama, it's easy. Tennessee, Alabama, or Florida are going to win it. Those three teams, I think, and I know we're going to say, oh, what about Auburn? I think Auburn's beatable. I think Bruce Pearl has probably won a minimum of 5, maybe more than that, games with his coaching. I think he's that good, and I think he's that dialed in. And matter of fact, I think he's that much better than in the college coaching games. He knows he just this simple. He knows how to win. But I'm gonna say, it's that down to those three. It's really hard to pick. And I'm a Tennessee fan, and I like to bet against Alabama, but I think Florida is your front runner.
Did you see the Bruce Pearl interview during the SEC tournament where he was live and talking about his strategies, and he described why his system worked because his guards weren't P words? Did you see that? He said it live on TV.
Oh, brother, no filter on Brother Bruce. No.
It's amazing. It's like him and Nick Saban just don't give a rip. I saw a quote where someone was critical of Saban's language on College Game Day, because he said the S word a lot. And he said, hey, you know, I talk how I talk, and if you don't like it, I don't give a shit. And I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, buddy. You know, that's what got Pearl in trouble and a few other things at UT, but unfiltered, but his passion for the game, man. And again, I'm going to go back to it. He lives it, breathes it, sleeps it, eats it. And that's what it takes to win. But he wins games by his, not alone, but yes, his coaching wins games, no doubt.
I don't want to hit us with some more bad news, but I am curious to see if you got to spend any time with Bill Mercer. We heard over the weekend that he lost his long battle. Man, he was 99 years old. What a full life he lived. I saw a lot of people saying that he was sort of the voice of professional wrestling for the DFW. Of course, we're talking about the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Once upon a time, Dallas had the best syndicated show in the entire world. I'm talking about better than WCW, better than the WWE. I mean, they were doing gangbuster business. They were very innovative with guys like, you know, Keith Mitchell there, really doing the hard work. But Bill Mercer was sort of the voice of all that. He provided the soundtrack for all that, and he's no longer with us. Do you have any Bill Mercer stories you could share with us?
And I don't have any personal. His time had gone past when we went out there in the late 80s. But, you know, when I think of Bill Mercer, I think about that generation of Gordon Soley, Lance Russell, Bill Mercer, and they all made their impacts on the industry. You know, Conrad, when you really think about 22 territories, so we'll call it 22. But when you think about kind of the legendary names that are still kind of thought of today, I just put those three in a category, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail that, oh no, this guy, and you know, I'll say Don Owens or California or, you know, Bill Watts. And I mean, I know we're going to hear different names, and JR was in all this, but when I think of Bill Mercer, I think about just what you said, the voice of Texas wrestling that was way ahead of its time. Just way ahead of its time. And Bill, just a legendary name. You know, you think about the voice that called, we'll call it the entire Von Erich run. That's pretty meaningful. And when you think about the connection Jerry Lawler had with Lance Russell, the Von Erichs with Mercer, I'll call it Dusty and Gordon, or, you know, there's a couple of names you could throw in there. Special. I mean, the guy was not good. He was great at what he did.
We're live here. We want to hear your questions. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, and keep those questions coming. In the meantime, let's take a listen to one of my very favorite sponsors. And you're going to want to get your butt in gear with Tushy.
All right, want to talk about a product that is near and dear to my heart. You got to be talking about Tushy. We've all heard the old phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness. Well, I never understood how we thought we could take care of business with a dry piece of toilet paper. It doesn't make any sense. I'm a big believer in this product. I'm talking about getting clean and getting closer to God, by goodness. Okay, maybe that's taking it a little too far. But for real, I am a day one user of Tushy. I've had this product in my home for a long time, long before they were advertising, because I really believe in it. And I got to tell you, one of my most pleasant surprises of the whole deal is how easy it is to install. Here's what happens. Tushy is the modern bidet that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and bottom health for life. The Aura is the new luxury bidet seat that turns your toilet time into La Dolce Vita. I don't even know what that means, but I know that I'm clean back yonder, y'all. Aura is brand new from Tushy. It's their electric bidet, and now they've got an auto-open lid and seat, instant warm water that never runs cold, and UV sterilization that gives you truly next-level hygiene. Aura by Tushy easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing, and instead of wiping endlessly with toilet paper, Tushy pristinely removes 99% of the bacteria, protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to only one natural ingredient: fresh water. Doesn't that just make sense? Installation is simple. You can do it in like 10 minutes. Literally anyone can do it. My mother-in-law put one in. And the Tushy bidet really gives you like 2-in-1 benefits. You'll reduce irritation and prevent micro tears with the soothing water, of course. and you don't have to worry about the damaging wet wipes. But how about this? It's also easy to use. You just sit down, you cleanse, and then you use the dry button. That's right, there's a built-in dryer. People who have made the switch to Tushy are going to use 80% less toilet paper. That's what I was talking about with those wet wipes. No more clogged toilets either, and no more wasting money on something that really does an inferior job cleaning your body. I mean, when you jump in the shower, do you jump in there with a roll of paper towels and not worry about the water? Of course not. It doesn't make sense. So why would, back there be any different? Hello Tushy even comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. So reclaim your comfort zone in the bathroom. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off their first bidet order when you use our code MyWorld at checkout. That's 10% off your first order at hellotushy.com with the promo code MyWorld.
We're live here and want to hear your questions to Jeff. Let's do one from I Dunk Biscuits. I love that handle. He wants to know, do wrestlers feel the difference between heat and go-away heat, or is heat just heat when it comes to the boys? It's a good question, Jeff.
I'd like to ask him, and we covered this, I think, a few episodes ago. How do you, it says, do wrestlers feel? How do you feel go-away heat? I've always been a bit perplexed in that, and I've got a good ear. I will pride myself on hearing that, okay, so somebody's going to say, oh, go to hell, and that's different from, oh, go to hell, that's go away heat.
Well, no, hang on. Go away heat is indifference. I think you and I would agree that, love and hate are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
But when you really, and I always say that because, like, when I hear someone say, oh, I hate my ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. Okay.
When you're really over it, you don't care.
No. So the don't care is no reaction. I can tell you the worst. That is the absolute worst. It is right up there at the very tip top. When you walk through the curtain, or you do a high spot, or you do a heat spot, whatever you do in the ring and you're performing, and the people don't react, that is.
Is there a worse feeling besides a botch? Is that number two behind a major botch?
Now look, my buddy Sam, like he and I, look, if I could have talked.
Well, I don't mean that kind of botch. I mean, like, a guy swung at you and he missed, but you still sold it anyway.
Okay. Okay.
That sort of thing.
Then stuff like that happens. You feel bad, but that kind of goes with the territory. It does.
Yes.
And that's a part of, it's like a guy, carpenter at work, hammering nails. Every now and then you're going to hit your thumb.
Yes.
It just happens. I mean, nobody's perfect.
Unless you're Shawn Michaels, and then somehow you don't, bastard.
But no, but the people sitting on their hands, and that's where it happens. And sometimes I want to talk to young guys, and I'll get on my soapbox, but I'll get off and just say, guys, all that stuff you did y'all just listen to the people?
Right.
What are we missing here, guys? Like, what are you doing the high spots for yourself? Yes, you are, because you're not doing it for the people because they didn't respond. Anyway, back off my soapbox.
I want to ask you about something that everybody responded to over the weekend. Well, I guess everybody had a strong opinion about this since last Wednesday night. It was a snowstorm in Nebraska, and from what we understand, there was a lot of travel affected, and maybe things didn't go exactly as planned, but no one was talking about that when the show was over. Instead, it's one of the most viral things that AEW's probably done this year, certainly one of the most viewed YouTube videos that they've posted, but all the different platforms had a ton of views, and it was a major spectacle. By now, I'm talking about John Moxley with the nails in his back. I'm not even sure if we're technically allowed to show this on YouTube, but you know what we're talking about here, Jeff. And man, it feels like anytime something like this happens, you get a lot of criticism. And I always land on, hey man, I'm not a wrestler. And if he feels safe enough, it's not like he was dictated and said, hey, you have to do this, and we're going to hold you at gunpoint unless you do. It's not punishment. If he feels confident that he can pull it off safely, I defer to the expert because I am not an expert. But other people say, this is not good. Where do you land on a nail spot like that? I mean, it got a lot of attention, so mission accomplished in that regard.
Big time. First, I want to give a shout out to the Omaha metropolitan area. On Tuesday, Conrad, it was, I think, 72 was the temperature. I landed late Tuesday night. Wednesday, and I was telling Karen, I've been in blizzard conditions in Toronto 2 or 3 times, Detroit a couple of times, Edmonton one time, the eastern provinces of Canada one time. It was upstate New York, just bad conditions. Wednesday in Omaha, Conrad, it was snowing sideways and it was 34 degrees. So says my iPhone, and it was sticking. And it was, the people that came out Wednesday night, and it was a full house, that they really wanted to be there. So I applaud them because, man, you talk about some crappy conditions to come out. But that, again, I'm tipping my cap. So the bat spot. Boy, oh boy, it is the world we live in. Back to the tribalism. Man, did that light some folks up. But, everything I say has already been said. But if you don't like it or don't want to watch it, you obviously have the ability to get online and bash the hell out of it. But I go into the line of thinking, if you don't like it, don't watch it. But it's free TV. That's okay. You got the remote control in your hand. Turn your head away from it. Walk out of the room. But man, there were some lightning rods of opinion. It was a moment, not for everybody, just like Lucha Libre and Strong Style and all that. Controversial, yes. But did it create revenue? I'm going to say on YouTube, it certainly created some revenue. I know there's 2 sides to all this, and creative is subjective. It's not for everybody, but it certainly jumped off the page and got people talking. And I'm going to, all negative. No, it's not all negative. They're talking. So mission accomplished across the board. And it is something that you just cannot do every week. And that's where, from a philosophical point of view is that pick your spots, because then they really become special.
I want to mention that while there has been a lot of negativity out there, there's been also a lot of misinformation. I actually saw a post on Reddit this morning I wanted to read with you.
Oh,
hello all, physician here. Decided to take a crack at this because I'm seeing a lot of misinformation being spread. I personally thought this bump was a very interesting way to showcase the limits and strength of the human body. People often take for granted just how durable the spinal muscles are. If you run your fingers over your spine right now, you have a couple inches of muscle and fat before you actually reach the spinal column, despite how tough the surrounding area feels. In fact, this region is so strong that in order to penetrate the muscles to reach the spine, you really have 2 options: incision with cautery, which means extremely high temperatures, or very long and thin needle for lumbar puncture, far longer than any needle on the bat, coupled with a lot of pressure. And after looking at the punctures on Moxley's back, it's safe to say these are superficial lacerations at best. So if we're going to say this bump was reckless or caused unnecessary harm, we have to map out what exactly the harm is. Spinal problem? Highly unlikely. Moxley got right up after the bump. If the spine was our main concern, you would not be seeing that. Additionally, you would need far more pressure to drive a spike of that thickness into the spine, far more than a suplex. Skin problem? Well, that's easily mitigatable with a previous tetanus shot. Oh, but the surrounding skin was moving. Well, that's to be expected with any sort of penetrating injury, regardless of depth. If there was any actual detachment of the skin, we would be seeing hematomas and extensive bruising, and Moxley probably would have fainted from blood loss or would have been rushed to the hospital. Yes, that spot looked brutal. That was the point. That's what the wrestler's job is. But to sit here and say, oh, that was unnecessary and could have caused a lot of harm, despite a whole plethora of evidence available that no legitimate harm was caused, is just ridiculous. By the way, it's still safer than a flying headbutt. And the idea that we're just hitting the face with some facts makes me sort of reset the conversation, because the other criticism I saw was, oh, this is bad for sponsors. And maybe that's my favorite. Why is that any of your concern? Like I've never watched a program and afterwards said, it was entertaining, but I think it's bad for the sport. What? Like I just saw HBO's White Lotus last night, and I won't give a spoiler, but the last 2 weeks have had two of the most foul things we've ever seen on television. They ain't worried about it. Controversy creates cash, as a friend of mine said. I think this is much ado about nothing, Jeff.
Oh, but it's already, I believe the news cycle's over. I felt it was over before I went to Mexico. It was like, yep, it was hot for about 24, 36 hours on the controversy part of it. And now, you're on into the next thing.
Again, I don't know. I don't work there. I'm hearing rumor and innuendo that perhaps there were things that were planned that night creatively that because of the travel complications, they didn't get to do. So when the whole show is sort of in flux and they're having to come up with something on the fly, shout out to John Moxley for being creative and thinking outside of the box. And instead of people focusing on who wasn't at the show or what they missed or whatever, they were talking about this. Hey man, high fives all around for Mr. Moxley.
Yeah, it's our business. Yeah, I mean, the news cycle's over.
I do wonder if he had any trouble getting to sleep that night, because it does feel like that would be something you might be tossing and turning with. But maybe if he had a little Vea, he wouldn't be doing that. We'll take a look.
Okay, listen, I'm not I guess you might call me a late bloomer. I have to admit, I was a little overwhelmed when I first heard about Vea, and I've been a big believer in the product. I know that it's helped a lot of people, but I just felt like a novice. I'm talking about specifically all the different ways that you can use hemp to enhance your everyday life. But I just want to make sure you understand. Has there ever been a time when you felt like you couldn't function on any less sleep? You're just struggling getting that rest that you really need? Vea has really helped me and my wife, and I think they can really help you too. Over 500,000 happy customers, can't be wrong. Vea is changing the game in natural wellness by combining high-quality hemp-derived ingredients with powerful cannabinoids to create real effect-driven results. And when we say effect-driven, I mean it. And that's what I really like about Vea. They made it not so overwhelming. I've heard people throw around words that I didn't really understand. But the packaging here with Vea made it easy. Hey, you want better sleep? Take this one. Maybe you want some focus? Take that one. Maybe you need a little boost in the bedroom? They can even help you there too. Or maybe what most of us need, a little way to chill out from your current stress levels that maybe are going to keep you from just being the old man yelling at clouds. Whatever you're looking for, Vea has a solution for you. And here's the best part. They even let you customize your experience. Whether you're looking for daily wellness, laser focus, or deep relaxation, they've got it all. I should mention too, their products range from zero. That's right. You can get this with 0 THC, but you can also get very high cannabinoid levels. So they've got something for everybody. Whether you're looking for some of those famous gummies, the premium ingrown THCA flower, or the calming drops. No matter what you're looking for, they were all made with organic, lab tested, and it's all been done from trusted American farms. I got to recommend this highly. So if you're 21 or over, I want you to treat yourself and get 15% off and a free gift with your first order when you use our exclusive code at veahemp.com. One more time, you'll get free shipping on orders over $100 at VIIAHEMP.com. You just want to use the promo code MyWorld. One more time, their products range from 0 milligrams of THC all the way to 100 milligrams of THC. It's made right here in the United States. They've got quality ingredients that have been lab tested and certified. It's very affordable. It's very accessible. They've got fantastic customer service. What are you waiting for? Go right now, use our promo code MyWorld, and you'll get 15% off plus free shipping on orders over $100. And if you're new to Vea, you even get a gift of your choice, and it's a free gift of your choice. Now, after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you, and enhance your everyday with Vea. So one more time, check out the link to Vea in our description if you're 21 or over, and use that promo code MyWorld.
Jeff, we've got some debate in the live chat here. I Dunk Biscuits, what a great handle, says, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Is that the right attitude for a television product that depends on viewership for continued revenue? Well, two things there. One, they do have a contract where the revenue is guaranteed. This is a stunt. I know that some people don't like the stunt, and I'm not trying to do some whataboutism, but I once, as a kid, saw Stone Cold put a pistol right to the head of Vince McMahon and pulled the trigger. Now, granted, a little flag came out that said "Bang 316," but still, I mean, if we're to look at the leader in the space, we've had crucifixions, we've had kidnappings, we've had Brian Pillman pulling a gun, and I know that we would say, "Oh, well, we shouldn't have done those things." I get that, but if this is a niche product and this is "quote unquote" for the sickos, I mean, I give this a pass every now and again. I think to your point, you can't do it every week, but it's something every now and again. I don't think it's that big a deal.
Well, I don't, Biscuits. I do. I appreciate the even the follow up on it, and the clarification that would be is it is incumbent upon the producer, the promoter, the wrestler, the leadership. I mean, it's incumbent upon the wrestling organization to figure out, is this good for the product or bad for the product? If it turns away more people than attracts, no doubt, that is not the attitude to have. If you don't like it, don't watch it, because then you've got a problem. But if you make the decision that I am going to accept the fact that this isn't for everybody, because if you try to please everybody, you absolutely, fail miserably in business, not just professional wrestling. You are going to piss people off regardless of the decision you make. So it's upon us, the promotion, to figure out, did this turn off more people than it turned on, than they liked it. So I say that if you don't like it, don't watch it, assuming that this is the minority speaking. Appreciate the follow-up, though, Dunk.
We've got a great question here I want to follow up with as well, because this kind of makes me laugh. William Turnbull says, "Hey, here's a question about wrestling logic. How do you beat Moxley if that weapon doesn't beat him? Well, what does?"
Okay. Boy, oh boy. I'm trying to think of kind of what, going into my history and stories, the Moondog, which was the Observer feud of the year that always nowadays people remind me of, we beat the hell out of each other with trash cans and chairs and super violence. And old Larry Latham, Moondog Spot, would sit back and say, "Yeah, Jeff, tonight's a spot show," because we did a lot of DQs during that era. Sometimes the baby faces would get DQ'd because of a ref anyway, but in spot shows, the baby face would go over. And I mean, Lawler would chuckle in on this, but Larry, his gimmick, and he loved all that. And his logic was that, okay, this chair, this didn't work, that didn't work, all this. Win with a wrestling move. The theater of their mind. So I used the drop kick off the second rope a lot of times during this deal. So we would go 15, 20 minutes of a brawl, and Larry would come charging, and I would move out of the way and hop right back up on there and hit him with the drop kick off the second. Some nights he'd say, "Hit me again," and maybe a third time, "Hit me again," and pin him 1, 2, 3, and the people exploded. So it's a great question, but I think it's taking out the but if this is real. Nope, folks, it's theater. It's theater.
Since we're talking about its theater, I want to bring something up that I saw late last night and I sent to Silva because I thought it was a fascinating discussion. I guess recently Braun Breaker did a promo backstage that was posted on social by WWE, and he was using "quote unquote" insider terminology. And this created a bit of a debate, and I saw some different tweets about it where, and I forget exactly who, maybe Silva has the tweet. Humble Wrestling says, "Braun, my guy, can we ease up on the use of insider terms?" And I actually saw, and I forget exactly who it was, but someone made a whole list. Oh, here you go. Backup Hangman says, "He gets a pass because he's cool. My philosophy is I'm okay with wrestling lingo that doesn't actively allude to the fact that wrestling is a work." And then he went on to actually list like the no-nos: heel, face, work, shoot, mid-carder, jobber, blading, spot, botch, bump, gig, good hand, green, heater, high spot, kayfabe, near fall, payoff, storyline, plant, sandbag, sell, or work rate. But then he also lists the okay stuff. He considers The Office, Get Over, This Business, Card, Chain Wrestling, Heat, Pop, Cheap Pop, Curtain Jerker, Draw, Faction. You get the idea. But he had a whole sort of list of all the things that were okay and no, and you've seen it all. I mean, when you first started, of course, heels and baby faces were never seen in the same dressing room, much less in the same car or in the same bar or restaurant. Kayfabe was a totally different thing. We're trying to defend wrestling at school. If little kids are saying, "Oh, what your daddy does is fake," well, them's fighting words. Nobody really does that anymore, but we still want to get lost in the story. And that became a topic of discussion even after Elimination Chamber, when we saw The Rock come out and do a press conference where he's sort of breaking the fourth wall. Where is the happy medium, at least in your mind, in 2025 with this, Jeff?
Oh God, Conrad, we've said this. It's so subjective. Can you tell me what Brian said? And not that it actually matters, because I've got to answer that.
No,
okay,
I can't.
Yeah, that's fine. So again, going back to my life experiences, but it taught me so much, and I think it's applicable today as it was 37 years ago when I got into the business. I'm driving the car. My father's sitting right next to me, Fargo in the back, or anyway, but in a car full of guys, old timers. And they used to, especially when I first broke in, they like to have fun with this. And we would order drive through and pull up to the window, and they'd say, "Hey, those are the wrestlers. I know you, this, yes." And, my dad liked to really carry on about it. Fargo would do it and all this. Yeah, we do all that fake stuff. And the lady working the drive through was like, "Huh? What'd you say?" "Yeah, wrestling, it's fake." And the lady would just look at her, and I don't know how many times I've seen this happen going, "Oh, no, it's not." I mean, some of that stuff, but do you remember so-and-so tonight? Now, that was real. And it goes back to that quote: "Those who believe, no explanation is needed. Those who don't believe, no explanation will do." And I'm not talking about the essence of this is true sport versus entertainment. If you want to be engaged, suspend disbelief, emotionally connected to a wrestling product, you're going to do that. There's nothing, I mean, you can say blade, you can say all those no words up there. If you want to get engaged, you're going to. I'm going to go back to it's the character that at the end of the day, the talent that has that emotional connection can really sell and do anything, because they have built a connection with their audience individually. That is something that I just think a lot of times is such a missed art or missed opportunity, or both, is that at the end of the day, music business, comedy business, wrestling business, if you're in the business of performing on a stage and creating revenue, that you have to have an emotional connection with your audience for them to put their hand in their phone and hit the Apple Wallet. And for them, I don't think that will ever, I just think the fundamentals that will ever change. So I don't think there is any exact line. I think it depends on fan by fan and talent by talent. It's, man, to even have these kind of conversations that these words are good and these words are bad, it is getting on your high horse quite a bit. But it's, again, it's subjective. That's that guy's opinion versus somebody else. I mean, I get it. We all have different opinions of it.
Well, something I think most of us are aligned about is Homicide. Homicide quietly had his last match last Thursday, and from what I hear from everyone involved, it was a fantastic celebration for him, a fantastic send-off. I know Mike Johnson from PW Insider was thrilled to be there and be a part. I know how much this meant to Santana and Samoa Joe and Eddie Kingston and I mean, Homicide was right there really in the very beginning of Ring of Honor and was one of their top talents. And of course, we know you shared a locker room with him and saw something in him when you gave him a job with TNA. And, he would be off and on there with LAX. We even saw him at Grand Slam for AEW. we say this all the time, I feel like, on My World, that timing is everything. And I do feel like if Homicide had come along 10 years later, man, his career and his bank account may look a whole lot differently. But we hear, according to the reports out there, that he had a medical issue and was advised to stop wrestling. So almost abruptly, his last match was Thursday. But what a trailblazer, what an innovator. I mean, he is crossed paths with a who's who of professional wrestling that you see on TV these days, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, or hell, even Saturday. But it looks like he's had his last match. As Eddie Kingston said, we're both Terry Funk fans, so I know this isn't the real retirement, but happy retirement anyway. What did you think of Eddie Kingston and his remarks about Homicide? And what can you tell us about Homicide and your time with him?
Well, last Wednesday, in Omaha, Jeff Jones came up to me and said, "Hey, it just kind of crossed my mind. You've got a history with Homicide." And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And I said, "I read that. It's, I'd love to know more about last match that because of kind of his place in the, and I'll say not just Ring of Honor, but kind of the Northeast independent scene, if you will." And yes, Ring of Honors, but my relationship with him, and I told Jeff, and he said, "Oh, just say that on camera because we're going to send him a video for his last match." Conrad, when I tell you, in a lot of ways, the glue of LAX, and yes, Conan was the leader, but there were multiple instances that Conan high strung and he passionate and believed what he believed in, most of the time right, and controversial. But man, Homicide was that glue that we're going to go to the ring and deliver. And he had a couple of different partners, but I can't say enough good things about the human being Homicide is, because in his core of who he was, really shone through in the type of businessman he was in this business. So yeah, man, I hope his health, I hope he's good. He's one of those guys that when you kind of look what you just said, the place in his business, timing is everything, but man, deep roots in that Northeast scene, that his body of work is way underappreciated.
Shout out to Homicide. If you're interested in seeing one of his matches, I highly recommend his feud with Steve Corino, that barbed wire match. I mean, he slapped Steve Corino so hard. Steve Corino still is hard of hearing in one of his ears to this day. I mean, it was brutality personified. And I hope that he finds success and peace and contentment post his in-ring career. He's got a brilliant mind for wrestling and has been an influence on so many guys. I could totally see him working in some other capacity in wrestling. And I hope he finds exactly what lane that is, because he deserves success, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Good dude. That's what I said. I wanted to talk on camera about the human being he was as opposed to the talent.
I also want to give a shout out to everybody who's keeping these questions coming. I greatly appreciate that. We're going to be taking your questions for several more minutes here, so keep them coming. But we've got one here that says, "Conrad, please ask Jeff what made him want to wear the wrestling gear that went all the way to the neck with the suspenders." Of course, I have nicknamed this the Venetian blinds. What is the creative behind that? Do you remember who came up with that, or what your inspiration was?
That was me. And I can't read his. It's in Arabic, I think, Conrad. I don't know. So shout out to whoever came up with this question. But we've discussed this a couple of times on My World, and you had it the Venetian blinds. I think Mr. Bischoff named it something else. But at the time, in the era, if you will, because I actually started it, it wasn't in the WWF, although it was right before I went, and it was I'll call it much more the era of characters, if you will. But I wanted something flashy, and I had worn short tights, and then I went to long tights and different robes and all this, but I wanted to do something different. And, Lawler always wore the single strap. And then, I'd like to say that it was like guitar strings, but that's maybe internet lore. But I just wanted to design something different. And we just kind of went down a couple of different lanes. The lady that used to sew for me, her husband played on the Grand Ole Opry, and so there was, I'll say, a little bit of a country music mindset behind it. Not guitar strings, but just kind of the flamboyancy of it. That's it. Nothing like eye popping or, oh, that's why he did it. I just wanted a different look, more of a costume as opposed to wrestling tights. I'll say lean into the entertainment as opposed to sports.
Mr. T94 says, I know Mr. Jarrett has stated before that he doesn't have regrets, but what's one thing Mr. Jarrett would have done differently back in the TNA days? Rather a match, storyline feud, or backstage stuff. So is there one thing you wish you had a do-over on in TNA, Jeff?
Yeah.
Can you say it out loud, or is that?
Sure. Mr. T94. And this isn't this is a life lesson. So you may not be getting what you're looking for but the lines of I did not over communicate. If I would have communicated, with Dixie specifically, but others, in that I was in the lead role and it's not the easiest job, and I was wearing a lot of hats, but over communication, exchange of information, goal alignment, all those kind of things, it would have been even more productive. I'm very proud of the work that we did from 2002 to 2009 under my leadership. Very proud. I believe from 2010 to 2013, all the water under the bridge, even at that point, if I would have over communicated, I think things had the possibility, maybe not, turned out differently, but it didn't. I wasn't being communicated with, and so I probably chose the route to maybe not. Anyway, it went from bad to worse, and things. I ended up resigning, obviously, from my own company. But the lack of communication goes a long way, especially in the, we'll call it, creative collaboration business.
Jeff, I've got a few silly questions I want to ask you that I've saved, and I've got one controversial question. I want you to think about which one you want first, but while you're thinking about that, let me tell you about some nostalgia that tastes great with our friends at Magic Spoon.
Remember when we were all a kid and we'd plop down in front of the TV on a Saturday morning, fire up some old school wrestling? Well, it wasn't old school then. It was the latest and greatest WWF Superstars or WCW Power Hour. Well, my mom did that, and I got a big bowl of cereal. But then when we grow up, we realize, hey, man, there's too much sugar in this. I actually need more protein in the morning. Well, Magic Spoon has grown up with us, but they know we're all still a kid at heart. So it's nostalgically delicious. It tastes just like the cereals you grew up on, but without all the sugar, and now packed with a ton of protein. And by now you already know that, but here's what you may not know. They've also launched a brand new high-protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, yeah, you guessed it, it's packed with protein and super crunchy. I've been bragging on these high-protein treats from Magic Spoon for quite a while. I love them because they're an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go, and they come in classic flavors like marshmallow. Yeah, it's just what you think it is. But how about peanut butter and dark chocolate? But my favorite, double chocolate. I've actually double dog dared people online to try it, and they reported back 5 out of 5, no lies detected. Go try it. You're going to love it. And while you're at it, check out the brand new granola that packs in 13 grams of protein, but 0 added sugars. They also come in a variety of different flavors. How about dark chocolate almond or honey almond or peanut butter? Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/myworld, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/myworld for $5 off.
So, Jeff, do you want a silly one? Do you want a controversial one? Do you want one right down the middle? You call it.
You're driving this truck. Give me right down the middle to start off.
Jack Gaffney had a question for us over on Twitter that I thought was worth asking here. Jeff, TNA's live events in 2010 and 2011 went all out for fan engagement. Backstage passes, in-ring photo ops, wrestlers signing autographs before the show. Who pushed for that approach? And was it more about boosting ticket sales or building long-term fan goodwill?
All the above. I like to tell the story, and I've told it many times. Show one, Toby Keith, good buddy of mine, successful, not just on stage. And that's, I think a lot of people forget. I love Toby's music, but much bigger than that is his business acumen and his mindset. And I mean, the dude's been on front of every country music publication, but there is very, very few country music stars that have been on the cover of Fortune magazine. Just a $1 billion dude. And I said, hey man, got any advice? Really, I'll call it maybe a little small talk, maybe not. He just said, hey Jeff, know your fan base and earn them one at a time. I'll never forget it. It is so simple, but know your fan base, earn them one at a time. And then my babysitter, Conrad likes to, call her the hottest box office attraction in the world, Taylor Swift. If you really know her story, which I do, your head will spin on it. All started for her. And look, her family's from Pennsylvania. They moved to Nashville. Her dad's in the finance business, could basically work out of his house 25 years ago, whenever that was. But she knocked on doors, and I'm a songwriter and I'm an artist and all this. But before she got any traction, there was this thing called MySpace. And she responded to every one of her fans, and she built her following. Platform don't even exist today, really. But anyway, that knowing, look, she's I'll call her a little girl, but a teenage girl building a career, and it kind of snowballed and blossomed. That kind of mindset, in that you can look out to an arena and go, oh, there's only 1,000. Oh, there's only 2,000. Oh, it's only 5,000, half a house, and everything's relative. But the people that came are the ones that spent their hard-earned money to come see your ass. So if you don't cater to them and understand that they are putting groceries on your table, and again, I've got 3 generations to teach me this, but I truly believe. And so I was I can't say that I was the only one, but I'll say myself and Don West, JB got it. I'm not saying he brought it to the table, but there was a nucleus of us that really understood. Don, at the end of the day, there was a thing floating around him doing at his best. Dutch sent me a tweet and all this, but the ability to sell. But Don also understood that if we can get merch in people's hands, then all of a sudden they become, the fancy word today is they're brand influencers. That's the truth. So when you think of, whoever it may be, Orange Cassidy selling T-shirts, Cody Rhodes selling T-shirts, when they start selling merch and those fans are wearing the merch, then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Now they're out in the world being brand ambassadors. At TNA, and our live events were very successful per head in that era, basically 06 to 2010. We really wanted to make the fan experience a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Here's a fun one from RCS88, who says, reading an old issue of the WWF magazine, the SummerSlam 95 preview mentions you against the roadie. Who was supposed to win?
Have to ask Vinnie Mac. My gut tells me on a big super show, but look, as soon as I say that, you can't say that. I mean, you would think on a Mania that Razor Ramon would have beat me back for the belt. That didn't happen. I won it at Rumble, and he didn't beat me back for it at Mania. So on big shows, baby faces go over. So to start the program, which that would have been, because July is when we walked, I'd have to say, going out on a limb, I would probably have been picked to win, because it would have been our first matchup.
Tracy Root has a fun question. That's Mrs. Meany. And she says, Mrs. Meany from South Philadelphia wants to know if you've ever seen a ghost. So, yeah, Jeff, have you ever seen a ghost?
Oh, Trey Fabe. That's her name, which I love that, Trey Fabe. Oh, Miss Meany, it's got to be a trick question, but have I ever seen a ghost? Do my Dr. Evil bad impersonation? But I can't say that I have not seen a ghost, Miss Meany. I'm sorry.
And now it's time for the controversial question.
Oh boy, I can tell, Connie. Before you get into this, these kind of freestyles, free for alls, YouTube live specials, I love these.
I do too. We should do these on a more regular basis.
I love them. I love them. Very engaging. All the fan interaction, and everybody. We'll give our thank yous in a little bit. Oh, go ahead. But I just see an Andy Griffith comment. Is that a question?
Hey, here's the deal. If you haven't already, you can hear it from Jeff's voice. We're going to be doing more of these. It's a lot of fun. We want you to join us. It's totally free. Why wouldn't you do this? Go right now and hit the subscribe button at myworldpod.com. It's not a real website. It just forwards you to our YouTube channel. It's just easy to find when you type it in your browser. When you get there, I want you to hit the subscribe button. It'll cost you nothing. And for free, go ahead and hit the notification bell. I saw Rajiv jumped on as soon as we were live. We went live at 11, and at 11:01, Rajiv already had a comment, and the comment was, "The bell brought me here. That gimmick really works." That's how he was reminded that we were live. So be a part of what we're doing and have your chance to interact with Double J. Imagine if you were a little kid. I mean, back in the day, we used to have to write cards or letters, and realistically, we never heard back, and if we did, it would be a form letter we'd get 6 weeks later. But imagine you're here live asking your questions directly to Jeff, and you get an answer in real time in that very moment. That's what we're doing, and it's free. Go check it out right now at myworldpod.com. And now let's watch Jeff squirm in his seat. Here we go. Rob Dog says, I don't know that you've ever fully addressed why your last WWE run ended. Was it as simple as you're not a Triple H guy? Now, that's interesting because I didn't really put that together until just now, but it does feel like you had a good relationship with Vince. And I know you're friends with Brian James in real life, Brian Armstrong, the Road Dog. It's interesting. This question comes from Rob Dog, but
it's Brian.
But Rob Dog, Brian, he's a Road Dog. He's like one of the head writers there. So he is fully entrenched as a member of quote unquote Triple H's team. Did you feel like you weren't a Triple H guy?
I mean, the short answer would be it would have to be yes, but I also know that, Brian and Triple H, and to be clear here, there is a funny story about this in that Brian, I can't say took my position, but Brian was put in the exact same job I had. Best buds, him replacing me. I always kind of thought that was fascinating, but the optics obviously appear and more to be unfolded that I'm not aware of, I think, in the months and years to come. But it's pretty obvious that Vince brought me back not once, but twice, 3 times. Yeah, was it 4 times or 3 times over that time frame? So I think the most simplistic answer would be Brian was more of a Triple H guy, but I've never had a crossword with Hunter in my life. Always business, always cordial. Matter of fact, when I came back the first time, as far as the Royal Rumble, he's the one that gave me the call, him and Carano. So to be in the Royal Rumble, because the Hall of Fame was 18, 19, the Rumble. Hunter's the one who called me there. So I can't say I'm not a Triple H guy, but I think Brian is more of a Triple H guy.
Well, that'll do it, boys and girls. We had a blast doing our live edition here on YouTube of Ask Jeff Anything. I want to remind you again, this is totally free. We're going to try to do these more often. And Jeff, I never know what to expect when we sit down and click record, but I feel like we covered pretty much everything except for the big promo last Monday. Of course, this past Monday, Raw was international, so it aired in the afternoon.
Yes, today.
And we heard from John Cena, the first time we've heard from him post quote unquote heel turn. And there was a lot of discussion about that promo. I recently sat down with Tom Carlucci, who was a longtime WWE employee, and he felt like that having John give this promo to a non-English speaking crowd was a miss. And he felt like it would have been received differently, more maybe like the Hogan Bash at the Beach promo, if he had done it in Madison Square Garden. I don't know this, but I believe that John Cena is shooting a movie in Europe, and perhaps they planned this appearance based on his shooting schedule, which would make sense. But do you believe him explaining his why after such a landmark heel turn and moment in wrestling to a non-English speaking audience took away from the potential of it being an iconic heat moment?
What's Eric's less than, better than, different? I think this would definitely fall way over into the category different. The one thing, and again, I didn't watch it live, so I've seen different clips and all that, Conrad, but the one thing that I think I am maybe more convinced now than ever, timing's everything. And I think they have hit it out of the park on the timing of all this. But I think going back to the chairman's decision to be adamant, I am never switching this guy heel. He sells tickets like nobody else on the roster by far. And that was the story of my, I experienced it firsthand, but I'm going back from, 07, 08, 09, 10 to whatever, 16, 17, 18, and I got to see numbers firsthand, but I went back. And again, when I was there, kind of doing that due diligence, and I had some folks in the live events department that kind of showed me some data on this year and this year, and this and with and without seeing and all this. But after watching the clips and understanding that him not turning heel all these years may or may not be controversial, but I think it is a slam dunk of opinion that was absolutely the right call to make. So would it have been better in front of an English-speaking crowd? I'm going to say yes. Did it fall? Did it fail? No, it didn't, in my opinion, at all.
I do want to ask, you said you haven't seen the whole promo, but you saw clips.
Yeah.
He didn't really explain why he was aligning with The Rock. He didn't really explain why he was turning on Cody. And I know that we've got still some time to go before we're there. We're about 3 weeks out. But I was a little let down. And I do feel like I've seen some criticism online that folks are nonplussed about Jey Uso and Gunther. And maybe some people are critical about Roman Reigns and Punk and Seth being in a three-way. And I've seen people who just a few years ago were saying that Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair was a dream match, now saying, eh. And I'm wondering, has the WWE perhaps become a victim of their own success? Because it seems like people have been so excited about their creative for so long that now the expectation is every time out they've got to top it. And just to be realistic, that's not always easy to do. So if we have a Royal Rumble that exceeds expectations for a show that already has high expectations, and then we do it again at Elimination Chamber, it does feel like for WrestleMania, people expect something even bigger, but I don't know if that's even really possible. Now, I'm sure that they're going to pull out all the stops, and when it's all said and done, people are going to be happy. I do think the key to life is managing expectations, and people going into WrestleMania with low expectations and far exceeding them. That's a pretty decent strategy, but I just don't feel like the buzz and the hype and the excitement is as hot for WrestleMania right now as it was maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. What do you make of that?
So, I think you referenced it earlier about Cody and the Bucks boxing themselves in. I do believe there's a massive element in there that if John's run here is short term, if you will, let's not box ourselves in a corner on trying to rationalize, justify, or minimize John's actions. Do we really need to say any more than that's already out there? So that's my kind of take on if people are let down by John's promo. And you said it, there's 3 weeks to go. So I think we're going to move into that. If we don't, I don't really think any more needs to be said other than John lost. I'm pissed off. I'm going to kick you in the nuts next time I say, that night or whatever it may be. And, now he's trying to get that title. I think let's not overthink it. Let's not over process this thing. So that's that. Now, as far as the buzz, I'm not going to get into political conversation right now, but depending upon who you listen to, leading into the election, this side was saying this and this side was saying this. They both were saying, if there isn't change, the world is coming to an end. Okay, there was a change, and now you just kind of flip the shoes. And now in professional wrestling with the extreme tribalism and, oh my gosh, Mania, it doesn't have the buzz, doesn't have the talk, doesn't have this, doesn't have that. Now, wait a minute. Last I checked, they're selling eat and greets for $800. They're having a roast. They're having this and that, and it goes without saying. My gut tells me the press release at least is already drafted. They just got to put the new numbers in. The most lucrative, most successful WrestleMania of all time. So it's so subjective when you say, oh, the buzz in there and this and that, and this and that. Okay. Maybe in the tribalistic way, the momentum's not there, but what Wall Street tells us, or what the Endeavor, was it Silver Lake? Those folks want the ROI. They're just happy. They're pleasantly happy these days, would be my opinion. So again, Connie, it goes back to the business we love, and I mean it when I say I love it more today than I did when I broke in. One of the reasons why is, when I broke in, you got to hear the wrestling fans, cheer and boo at night, go to the live event. And that's really about it. Some folks hanging out in the alley, some folks you see at the gas station. That's about it. Now you can get engaged with the wrestling fan all day, every day. And I just think that is a real positive. And so again, the wrestling business continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. So whether Mania has momentum or not, I believe is totally subjective.
Well, it's not subjective that we had fun today. We greatly appreciate you guys joining us for a fun conversation. I mean, we were all over the place, covered a wide variety of topics. We're going to do it again sooner rather than later. Hit that subscribe button and tell your friends. And don't forget to check out Double J in a town near you. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com. Jeff, it's been a while since somebody got a guitar necklace. I've even seen some of the talking head luminaries in wrestling saying, hey, Jeff Jarrett's been missing. Where's he gone? Is there any chance we're going to see you cracking somebody over the dome piece this Wednesday night?
Stay tuned. Wrestling and Eddie Kingston, what did he say? What did he say about how? Congrats on your first retirement, or on your retirement for now, or something like that. But no, look, folks, we got a long time. We got 2025 is 12 months. It's not 3 months or 4 months. So I'm pretty fired up. No, I'm very fired up. Going to Mexico this past weekend, I had some good conversations, and getting out there in the arena and getting the adrenaline pumping. Connie, I'll just say this and we'll close with this. Professional wrestling, in-ring performing is still my first true love.
See you next week right here on My World.
Peace.